So, good morning for me. I don't know what time is for you there when you hear this talk. As you see in the slide, as said Professor Cosentino, we are at the Instituto Clemente Estable in Montevideo, in Uruguay. That is, in our department is also part of the UNESCO Chair Neuroprotective Natural Compounds. That's the reason of the UNESCO logo in the picture. So, the first thing is, as you can understand, the neuropharmacology of medicinal plants is a very, very wide field, not well treated almost always. And I will try to concentrate in some plants just to give examples. And most likely we will leave others, but at least you can be sure that we will treat the most important ones and those that have more promise in neurology. I will give a short overview and I will divide my talk in three parts. Some plants related with protection of the brain and maybe likely of use in Alzheimer's diseases and memory problems. Medicinal plants related to anxiety and medicinal plants related to depression. So next slide. The humans, what is clear, I think it's clear for you also that modern pharmacology has less than 200 years. So humans have looked for plants to treat diseases for thousands of years. Today, medicinal plants are and even today, medicinal plants are the sole medical resource for more than 80% of the human population. It's really a big figure. This, the big point is what can we in the Western culture filtrate, I would say, or choose from all this knowledge for the and certificate it just for the knowledge for the well-being of all the human beings. Next. There are about 250 species of plants in the world, and 80,000 of these plants have been used for medicinal purposes. You see, it's a lot, really a lot, mainly by indigenous societies. Of all these plants, in fact, as demonstrated, about 2,000 have been curative properties. And about 1,300 are known for their aroma, flavors, other reasons. Next. As you can imagine, one of the reasons of the development and increasing the development of the market of plants, medicinal plants, is the consumption in Europe and Asia mainly, where countries like Germany, Japan, China, and India are already introduced medicinal plants into the health official or governmental health systems, and they are covered by medical insurance plans. That is good, and most probably this will spread quite soon. Okay, having this in mind then, of a big market, of a lot of plants, the next concept that is important, next, is that there are more or less two groups, I would say. So medicinal plants are in our world everywhere. And for example, here I show I'm showing you two clear examples of this. One is the mushroom Amanita muscaria, another is the Nicotiana tobacco, that, as you can imagine, is the tobacco plant, the plant of tobacco. And next, from where muscarine and nicotine are obtained, and as you know, muscarine and nicotine allow to classify the acetylcholine receptors into main and big groups. And you can imagine the importance of this then, the possibility to separate clearly and functionally two groups of acetylcholine receptors. They are agonists. Next. They are not the only. Cytosine is another agonist, anatoxin is another. So the medicinal plants related to nicotine, the cholinergic systems, is one of the most developed and one of the that has more influence in our medical knowledge today. Just also imagine curare, just you can add to this list. Next. As I said, among the agonists is cytosine, obtained from the seeds of Sophora secundiflora. That is a potent acetylcholine nicotinic acetylcholine agonist receptor that is spread from Colombia and South America up to Texas in the United States. But not only agonists. Next, antagonists of the nicotine acetylcholine receptors are also common in nature. One is methylaconitin, that is an alkaloid, terpenic alkaloid found in Delphinium browni. You see the picture here. There are even some species are native of Western Europe. Next. Oh, sorry. Before is the most important ligand of alpha-bungarotoxin, this antagonist. And alpha-bungarotoxin is important because it binds to alpha-7, the homopentameric alpha-7 nicotine acetylcholine receptor, that, as you may know, is the nicotine receptor more linked to neuroprotection. And in the brain, and as you see, is with great density in hypothalamus and hippocampus. Next. Other antagonist is the hydrobeta erythroidin, that is a curarimetic alkaloid, also an antagonist of nicotine acetylcholine receptor obtained from erythrin. So you see the cholinergic system, there are plants that act really in an important way on the cholinergic system in our brain. It could be active. But not only in that way, it's interesting that, for example, for Parkinson, next. For Parkinson, the common therapy is L-DOPA. And there are seeds and pods of Vicia fava that have L-DOPA directly, and have been trying clinical trials with good results. So you see that in medicinal plants, we have all principles acting on receptor, or like in this case, Vicia fava, of acting directly in other systems like dopaminergic one. Next. among the great number of plants, in fact, the medicinal plants that are documented with well-based facts for acting on the central nervous system are quite a few. I give here some of them. We will talk about others, but those Ginkgo biloba, Ascension wort, Kava kava, Valerian, Bacopa monieri con Bulbulus pluricalis are the more common and more surely you will find in the drugstore in your neighborhood. Some of them, because they are selling over the country. In fact, only the Chinese medicine and Ayurveda in India are those medicinal systems, curative systems that incorporated more the use of plants for the central nervous system. Next. Then let's talk about one of them, that is ashwagandha, the Witania somnifera. Ashwagandha has been referred as Indian ginseng, has been traditionally used for lack of libido, fatigue, recovery from illness, and mental progress. And even is considered as rejuvenator in Ayurveda. So you see, it's a plant, it's not common, a plant with so clear nervous system effects. And that's the reason why it's interesting to go deeper into the demonstration of how the value of those popular knowledge and popular use. I forgot to go deep into this point. The one thing is the popular use that are very wide in use and what has been demonstrated and what is important to demonstrate for its use in medicine. Next. And in that way, this ashwagandha, o sea, Witania, in rats that have been reared in isolation in two tests on elevated plasmase. This is this that is here, and in forced swimming, the graphic is here. You see in this, because we will come again and talk about the elevated plasmase. And you see the elevated plasmase are the system has two arms. One is covered, two are covered and two are open. You can imagine the animals try to get into the cover and as far as they can in the corner, and avoid to go into the open area. It is believed that going into the open things, because they provoke anxiety for them walking here. So entering in this area means an anxiolytic effect. So the animal is put in the middle and is allowed free to go to choose where they want to go. And the ashwagandha or Witania and diazepam. See, that is as important as diazepam and the effects. Those dependently increase the time spent into the open. So the treatment with the extract of these plants, the animals stay more in the open, are less anxious about being there. The other test is the forced swimming test, in which the animal is put in water, try to fight and go out of the cylinder for a while, up to the moment that they see that it's impossible and become immobile. The time of immobilization is, and their recovery time is taken as an index of antidepressant activity, and is what really the Witania also does. So you see, I will be showing you along the talk those experimental evidences that are clear-cut in the sense that substantiates what is taken from popular uses. Next. A review of 58 articles revealed that ashwagandha possesses anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, anti-stress, antioxidant, immunomodulatory, hemopoietic, and rejuvenative properties, and also benefit the central nervous system. And this is an important aspect of medicinal plants. Remember that plants are a complex mixture of 10th or even more substances. So, and then it's not that you are given one product for a disease. You are given a lot of products, a lot of substances, likely one of them acting on a disease. This is an important aspect to consider in neuropharmacology of medicinal plants when using them directly in medicine. The next. But a 30-day oral administration of an extract of this Witania somnifera, it is important that reverses behavioral deficits, plaque pathology, accumulation of beta-amyloid peptides, alpha-beta, and oligomers in the brain of middle-aged and all APP-PC1 that is an Alzheimer's disease transgenic mice. So not only has an anxiolytic, apparently antidepressant, but also apparently anti-Alzheimer, would have anti-Alzheimer activity in this model, particular model of genetic model of Alzheimer mice. So then, next. Among the, as I told you, among the several substances in Witania, which are the main principles, are alkaloids, isoperetierin, anaferrin, lactones, steroidal lactones, guitanolides, and guitaferrins, and supplements. The most important are the guitanolides. This is the molecule there you see that are the active molecules for our interest at the moment, that is neuropharmacology. And there are, of course, the other products can be of use for other systems. Next. Guitaferrin A, you see the molecule, is considered a novel neuronal regenerative agent, reducing significantly both axon and dendrites, inducing regeneration of axon and dendrites. Also, as I told you, in Alzheimer model of axonal atrophy. Also, guitaferrin A is a potent inhibitor of angiogenesis and inhibits both NF-kappa B and SP1 transcription factors. You see, what is increasing more and more in neuropharmacology and medicinal plant is this approach that is going deeper and deeper into the signaling, cellular signaling that affect neurological diseases. Next. Just going further into the influence of Witania somnifera and the actions, the studies were studied on a very well-known model of Parkinson's as MPTP. That is, you may know, is a recognized model in primates and mice of Parkinson's disease. Oral treatment with the root extracts resulted in a significant improvement in the mice behavior in antioxidant status, along with a significant reduction in the level of lipoperoxidation. You see behavioral improvement in antioxidant activity. And here, just as we mentioned, treatment with root extracts. They appear to be secondary. Root, which part of the plant is used is very important, and we will show clearly later in an example with kava. Next. But the model, what is important also that Witania has demonstrated to be effective not only in this model of Parkinson's, but also in the 6-hydroxydopamine model. That is another well-known model for Parkinson's disease. 3 weeks after 6-hydroxy injection, rats were tested for neurobehavioral activity and for the estimation of antioxidant markers. And Witania somnifera was found to reverse all the parameters significantly in a dose-dependent manner. So it appears then that from an experimental point of view, there are strong evidences showing that Witania somnifera has really effects on the central nervous systems. Next. Even it is said, and there are papers in this sense, that Witania could regenerate neurites and reconstruct synapses. For example, when witanolide, one compound of Witania is given for 13 days to just animals treated with alpha-beta induced memory, there is a recovery. But not only that, next, here you see the axons in culture. You see the control. Here the treatment with alpha-beta, control again, and here you see the treatment with witanolide. And you see the recovery of the axons. So really it's a regenerating capacity of Witania that is gives or shows a potential for regeneration in the central nervous system. Next. Furthermore, the neuroprotection effect of Witania were studied on stressed rats that were subjected to immobilization. You know, it's a very severe stress immobilization, prolonged immobilization, that provoke degeneration of areas of the hippocampus. Here is the hippocampus that provoke mainly CR1, CR2 areas region, with 85 degenerated cells, neurons in these areas. Yeah. Treatment with Witania root powder significantly reduced the number of degenerated cells in both areas. Again, as you see, there are important evidences, experimental evidences, for a central nervous system action of Wittan. Nevertheless, next, research reveals no clinical data regarding the use of ashwagandha for any condition. And this is an important aspect of neuropharmacology of medicinal plants, is that the main deficit now is in translational studies. We have very good experimental data, but still we need important clinical and relevant and mainly proven clinical data confirming just the result observed in the experiment. Just as a consequence of that, by the Committee on Herbal Medicine Products in Europe, the HMPC is the opinion that a community herbal monograph on Witania somnifera cannot be established at the present. So they still, clinical data are needed to substantiate all the experimental evidence. So this is a clear history of one medicinal plant with acting on the brain. Next. Another medicinal plants also coming from India, Chankapushpi, that is Convolvulus pluricalis, also used in India for hundreds of years, for nervous disorders, stress, anxiety, insomnia. Importantly, it produces a feeling of peace, calm, reduces stress, anxiety, and mental fatigue. With this profile is, one would say, is clearly neuropharmacology agent. Next. Also, in Ayurvedic medicine, it's believed that Shankapushpi is an anti-aging remedy called Rasayana. In Ayurvedic, this concept of anti-aging rejuvenators are common. And though practitioners of Ayurvedic have used Shankapushpi for centuries, what is clear is there is no hard scientific evidence as to the positive effect of these herbs in clinic. Besides few Indian studies performed in the 70s and 80s, and most of them published locally. Again, I will show you data later, experimental data, clinical data, not with enough way as to use, recommend use in general use in humans. Next. It is clear, nevertheless, that the effect of the extraction of the mice, on the mice immobility, we explained the forced swimming test that I described before, that reduces the immobility. And what is important is this efficacy was found to be comparable to that of imipramine and fluoxetine. So experimentally, this is a strong point, but no clinical evidence yet. Next. So, in this context, Convolvulus pluricalis promises as a safe, effective remedy for anxiety, but controlled human studies are needed to establish scientifically its efficacy in various CNS disorders, mainly on memory-enhanced property, what is claimed it has. Next. And another well-known plant is Bacopa moniera. Bacopa moniera is locally known as in India as Brahmi or Shalanimba. Has been used in Ayurvedic medical practitioner for almost 3,000 years. And is classified as a medalla rayana, drug to improve memory and intellect. I put here just a flask of showing the Bacopa you can find and you can buy it over the counter. And here is the picture of Bacopa. Next. Bacopa improves the performance of rats in various learning situations, exerts antioxidant effects, and modulates the activities of heat shock protein 70, cytochrome P45, and superoxide dismutase. The three have been studied on enzyme and signaling process in the brain. They appear to be active. Next. Also, Bacopa reduces divalent metals, those dependently scavenge radical species of oxygen, decreases the formation of lipid peroxides, inhibit the lipoxygenase activity. All activities antioxidant, very powerful antioxidant profile. And for people working in the field, the combination of these studies with those that have shown reduced beta amyloid levels in the brain of Alzheimer's disease model, suggest mechanism of action relevant to the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Next. Why could be the mechanism of action of Bacopa besides the antioxidation? It appears that they may be mediated by modulation of the cholinergic system or antioxidant system. Effects of the cholinergic system include modulation of choline acetylase activity, acetylcholine release, muscarinic cholinergic receptor binding. You can understand that if this profile is true and is confirmed, it's really a very interesting profile of action for Alzheimer's, and if not for Alzheimer's, for memory or even the age deterioration of the brain. Next. Effects of an extract of Bacopa were tested in human in cognitive functioning in a 90-day double-blind placebo-controlled study. Those are the type of studies that are rare in neuropharmacology. Double-blind placebo-controlled randomized trial. In this type of test, Bacopa significantly improved performance on the working memory factor. So this study supports or gives support for other two studies reporting cognitive enhancing effects in healthy humans after administration of Bacopa. So here we have experimental and some clinical results. Other experimental showing anti-amnesic effects on amnesia induced by diazepam, and appear that also has a gamma aminobutyric acid benzodiazepine pathway, possibly affecting long-term potentiation. Coming again to clinical, various clinical studies have been carried out to establish the efficacy of Bacopa, keeping positive results of such clinical trial Bacopa has been introduced in the Indian market and in the other countries alone or in combination with other phytocomplexes and utilizes in the treatment of memory and attention disorders. You see, there are evidence, experimental and clinical, that has allowed to introduce in some markets like India, but the general introduction, general acceptance is still needed more clinical data. Okay, here we end with this part of the plants related to improvement of the brain in the sense of generation, and that globally, as you see, are very promising in the experimental data, needing still clinical work. Next. And the next chapter is medicinal plants for anxiety. You see the background of the slide is the Munch in the famous picture that describes has been utilized as a mark for anxiety. Next. I will use a Munch as background in the following. And anxiety disorders such as generalized anxiety, panic disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, phobias, or post-traumatic stress disorders are a major cause of disability. You may feel in your life, and you see around you the importance that anxiety disorders have for the life of common human beings. The prevalence figures 1 year are about 13%. Anxiety is also important because it's part of other diseases like depression, accompanying or schizophrenia or other mental disorders. Anxiety are amongst the most common reason for people to try herbal medicines. Next. The use of medicinal plants for the treatment of mental disorders and anxiety has increased considerably for that reasons in recent years. To the use of St. John wort that we'll talk later, valerian, the kava have been used in anxiety disorders and provide clear examples for phytotherapeutic remedies. Maybe here in the field, more than in the previous field of neurodegeneration, here in the field of anxiety is where phytomedicines can have a role, even very well demonstrated in some cases, as we will see. Next. As you know, the benzodiazepines are the medicines of choice for anxiety. I'm talking of benzodiazepines in general, there are several types of benzodiazepines. But it is clear there are the most frequently prescribed drugs for anxiety, are the most widely prescribed psychoactive drugs in the world, and are the best-selling groups in the history of medicine with annual worldwide sales for $21 billion. But as you know, it is said that there are secondary effects, like addiction to the benzodiazepines, difficulties to withdrawal syndromes, etc., that make that people is looking for other alternatives where phytotherapies appear to have a clear role. the action of benzodiazepine clearly identified is binding to the GABA-A receptor. And the GABA-A benzodiazepine receptor complex is involved in sedation, epilepsy, and convulsion. Here you have a picture of a GABA-A receptor with a site for benzodiazepine. Next. Benzodiazepines are one of the major modulators of the central GABA receptor. GABA receptors belong to the major inhibitory system in the central nervous system, opening a chloride ion selective channel in GABA receptors, which are equally modulated by the benzodiazepine. And here is again a picture of the structure of the GABA receptor. Then, next, beyond popular use, recognized popular use for anxiety, the analysis of sedative activity of medicinal plants has been approached by assessing the activity of the plants or the extracts at the GABA-A benzodiazepine complex, or the evaluation of clinical sedation. And thus, for example, in South African and very well just planets experimental study, various flavones with in vitro GABA benzodiazepine receptor activity, spidolin and cincliniol ranitidine, have been isolated from the aerial part of several Artemisia species in a South African study. So here appear a very important group of molecules of the plants that are the flavonoids, that are divided, that are more than 8,000 in all nature, are present in all the plants, and are divided in several groups. One of the groups, flavones, have been demonstrated to be important for the anxiolytic action of some plants. One of these flavonoids is spidolin. It is a potent benzodiazepine receptor ligand. You see here spidolin. It is the most well-known flavonoid is here quercetin. It's not recognized by its anxiolytic effects, but you see spidolin here. We know main or big difference just without hydroxide here and here. Nevertheless, these flavones, spidolin is a potent receptor ligand. It stimulated GABA-induced chloride currents, and when given to just Gervils prone to seizure, spidolin and diazepam markedly reduces the number of animals suffering from seizure. So that you know that the anxiolytic activity is closely related to the anti-epileptic activity. And spidolin appears to have a similar profile in this sense. The next, there are more than 14 species of Helicuston utilized by Zulu traditional medicine. This is important. Sometimes the medicinal plants are taken out of the way or in the place where they are utilized. And for example, here they are burned also as ritual incenses in all even the consultation with the shaman in the group. Helichrysum species contain flavonoids. Again, flavonoids appear as an important group of molecules. Next, to show this, I will talk briefly of natural flavonoids. They have been described as selective benzodiazepine receptor ligands and as candidates for the treatment of epilepsy, anxiety, and sleep disturbances. Our group, together with the Argentinian and Chilean groups, a long time ago in the 90s, discovered that flavones in Passiflora cerulea, that is a well-known plant in the region, or in a most common, even common there in Europe, chamomile, in those plants and other plants contain a group of flavones, chrysin, apigenin, and wogonin, that are here, apigenin, chrysin, and wogonin, that have shown to possess anxiolytic effects in vivo. And in contrast with the well-known benzodiazepine like Valium, for example, the biorelaxation effects appear to be less prominent. So they appear to be more selective for anxiety and with less secondary effects on the muscular system. When injected into mice, chrysin and iflavone had an anxiolytic-like effect in the elevated plasmates that we have been talking before. You have here the animal in the center and chooses where to go. And more importantly, this effect was blocked by the specific benzodiazepine receptor antagonist flumacin. So there are then a group of flavones with effects on GABA-A receptor that clearly mimic the effects of benzodiazepines and without the muscle relaxant activity. Next. There are other remedies that are given for anxiety, like blues, cap, guarana, cava, quinine, lemongrass, valerian. We'll talk about two of them, cava and valerian. Apart from cava, which has been repeatedly shown to be as effective as benzodiazepine, the other medicine are associated with an effect site comparable to standard anxiolytic treatment. Let's talk about cava then. That is pipermethystic. It's an ancient crop of the Western Pacific. It's a tranquilizer primarily consumed to relax without disrupting mental clarity. It's the idea, one would say, of the plants, of the activities that one would require and would look for in some moments. In some part of the Western world, cava extract is marketed as an herbal medicine against stress, insomnia, anxiety, and we will see the problems they have faced. Cava is used for medicinal, religious, political, cultural, and social purposes through the Pacific. And this is, again, important. The plants are utilized, medicinal plants, in most cases, are utilized in a cultural context where we, from the Western world, take it for our anxiety or depression, etc., and sometimes forget the global view of the plants. It is used primarily in social gatherings to increase amiability, to relax after work, and has a great religious significance being used to obtain inspiration. Again, it's a profile that maybe if taking cellulase would be added to some to something in gathering in our society, just to increase some ability. Next, there are many evidence demonstrating GABA effectiveness in anxiety and enhancing sleep quality in clinical or placebo-controlled double-blind studies. You see here the list of works that are cited. So GABA is one of the most well-documented plans on the clinical effects. Unlike conventional benzodiazepine type anxiolytics, which tend to impair cognitive performance, GABA is a potent anxiolytic which can facilitate cognitive function, the contrary, and increase positive affectivity related to exhilaration. So you see, they don't have two of the most important aspects, that is muscle relaxing and cognitive deterioration, are not, those plants don't have it. So the superiority of GABA extract over placebo was suggested by 7 reviewed trials. Meta-analysis of 3 trials suggest a significant difference in the reduction of the total score on the Hamilton rating scale. You know, it's a very well-known scale for anxiety in favor of GABA. And this data implies that GABA extract is superior to placebo as a symptomatic treatment of anxiety. So, GABA extract is an herbal treatment option for anxiety that is worthy of consideration. So you see, here we have in anxiety we have a clear difference with neurodegeneration of medicinal plants. Which are the active ingredients in GABA? Are the GABA-lactones, of which at least 15 have been identified. Are muscle relaxant, anesthetic, anticonvulsive, and anxiolytic. Also to result from direct interaction of GABA-lactones with voltage-gated ion channels. And results suggest the GABA-lactones potentiate GABA-A activity, the same that the benzodiazepine. And also alter dopamine and serotonin in the CNS. Next. But GABA is banned in Switzerland, France, and the Netherlands. The Health Agency of Canada issued a stop sale order for GABA in 2002. The United States CDC has released a report expressing reservation about the use of GABA and its possible adverse side effects. And all these appear after severe liver toxicity episodes. So, time and research showed afterwards the reason of this. What happened? We were talking about very clear-cut clinical effects, and suddenly all these prohibitions. The point is that an alkaloid, ivermectin, that are in the leaves but not in the roots, have toxic effects on liver cells in vitro and in vivo. In rats, it shows clear hepatic toxicity. What happened? After all these studies of showing clinical evidence of the relevance of GABA in anxiety, you can imagine that lots of people went to the Pacific Islands just to harvest GABA. But they harvested the leaves, but the indigenous communities used the roots. So what they took for their countries were not the effective part, but the toxic part of the plant. So we, in the Western, we didn't learn from the popular knowledge of these societies. Most likely had taken years, hundreds of years, to come to this point where, for example, in this case, are the roots, those that are effective in on the leaves. And it's a caution in the use of medicinal plants that in case of, for example, kava, has to be taken into account. Another well-known medicinal plants, most probably one of the most utilized, that is Valeriana officinalis, valerian. That etymologically Valeriana derives from the Latin word valere, well-being. An officinalis is a term indicating the pharmaceutical use of the plant. Valerian has been used therapeutically since the Greek and Roman times. And since the 1st century before Christ, the cannabis is used as a mild sedative. Next. And you see here, apart from the sedative, what I taught you several times along the talk, other uses. For example, valerian is used as cardiotonic, sedative, stimulating, cure for epilepsy, hysteria, convulsive, etc., etc. But in reality, what makes popular valerian have been the treatment for the use in the treatment of insomnia and anxiety. Next. Several studies have said that valerian improves the quality of sleep and reduces the time to fall asleep. However, most studies have not used scientific ways of measuring sleep improvements, such as sleep pattern data and sleep laboratory. Again, several studies of valerian have reported benefit in reducing non-specific side effects. However, most studies have been small and poorly designed. This is the problem, that there are few clinical studies, and when we have clinical, they are poorly designed sometimes. And here is so more studies are needed. Next. Here, I don't read this slide, it would be terrible. Every line, group, paragraph is showing studies on valerian, clinical studies showing positive or negative results, and these follow here. But the most important is the summing up. 15 showed positive effects, 10 showed negative effects. And here, ways of doing the studies are most probably related to. But this is the way or the data we have to adapt in neuropharmacology of medicinal plants. This doubting that is weighing in a side, but not absurdly. Next, linearin, that is a flavone glycoside, was identified in valerian and like aspirin shows sedative and sleep enhancing properties. Well, the last part then is depression, and we will utilize a background, in this case Van Gogh, that suffered from bipolar disease. Depression is epidemiological. Depression is the most common mental disease. 4% of men and 8% of women suffer of clinical identified depression, and a much higher number present depressive symptoms. It's like you ask for anxiety, for depression, we also always hear around us people that feel depressed, that feel bad, etc. So having remedies for depression is extremely important. What the cause of depression appear to be linked to the serotonin metabolism, and is expressed by the marker of the metabolite, 5-hydroxyindole acetic acid, that is reduced in cerebrospinal fluid of patients with severe depression, and the limbic regions receptors are the presence of serotonin in the limbic region of the brain of suicide victims. Next. Serotonin receptor function still abnormal in depression with an increase in the density of cortical 5-HT2A receptors in the brains of suicide victims, and also on the platelet membrane of patients. Depression in the exits of Prozac, fluoxetine, one drug of the family of antidepressants called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that is here, the molecule, structural, and of which over 22 million prescriptions of fluoxetine were filled only in the United States in 2003. So the exit of Prozac, just moving all the previous tricyclic, etc., has been tremendous. And Prozacs and Prozac derivatives are the drugs more in use nowadays in the treatment of depression. Next. The herb we know today as St. John's wort is now scientifically as Hypericum perfuratum, and gets its name in honor of John the Baptist due to the fact that it flowers at the time of the summer solstice, or around St. John's Day on June 24th. Having been administered as a remedy by Roman military doctors as early as the 1st century before Christ, it was mainly used for magic potion in the Middle Ages, or protect humans and animals against witches, demons, diseases. Next. What is important for us is that John's wort extracts has a clear inhibitory effect of the neuronal uptake of serotonin, noradrenaline, and dopamine. So, and this is an effect, a typical effect of antidepressant, but also of gamma-butyric acid, GABA, and glutamate is even wider the effect. Out of all the individual substances, St. John's wort, only perforin and its structural analog, adiperforin, are the reason of the reuptake of this neurotransmitter. And what is important, in the case of Prozac, etc., they block the uptake. Here, they don't work as a competitive inhibitor of the transmitter, but it affects the sodium gradient, which leads to an inhibition of uptake. So they don't act directly in the uptaker, but on the regulation of the uptake of serotonin. And that could explain the antidepressant effect, and that is just similar to that observed with very well-known drugs. And here is said again, Hypericum exerts this reuptake inhibition non-competitively by enhancing intracellular sodium ion concentration. At a receptor level, chronic treatment with Pericon downregulates beta receptors, upregulates postsynaptic 5-HT1A and 5-HT2. Next. And here is the molecule responsible in this hyperforin. So you see it's a complex molecule. Clinical studies link the therapeutic efficacy of Pericon extracts to the hyperforin context. That's important in a dose-dependent manner. Beyond the antidepressant activity, hyperforin has anxiolytic-like, cognition-enhancing effects, and in vivo antioxidant activities. So what is said is that tricycline mainly before have secondary effects, and that are not so bad sense on words. And that's one of the reasons of the popularity for the for the plant extracts. Next. Based upon limited studies, Sension words appears to be an acceptable alternative to traditional antidepressant therapy. And again, the cautions appear, although trials on a large scale are warranted in this area. Next. Control studies, nevertheless, chosen upon the large patient population and the consistency in brand and dosage, that's important. Consistency in brand of Sension words used demonstrated that Sension's word was as effective as other antidepressant medications and more effective than placebo as the clinical symptom of depression. So the symptoms decreased after administration. Next. But concerns have been raised over interactions between Sension's words and certain prescribed medicines like warfarin, cyclosporin, theophylline, digoxin, HIV protease inhibitor, anticonvulsant, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, oral contraceptive, etc. So, and here I'm finishing my talk with this concept of Sension's word that I think is a good summing up of the whole presentation, is that regarding neuropharmacology medicinal plants, we have a lot of experimental evidences in favor of several uses in the brain, like neurodegeneration, anxiety, and depression, but in some cases, more than in other, clinical trials are still required, or you have to be borne in mind that medicinal plants are not devoid of secondary effects or interaction with other medicines, and therefore they should be taught in all these things in medical schools that are plants with advantages, but have to be administered to the patient in a very well articulate way. So thank you very much for your attention.